10 reasons why you should grow daffodils. How exciting it was to be sitting in a field of blooming daffodils in the late winter. Today we're going to be taking a look at 10 reasons why you should grow some in your own space. My name is Marlene. Welcome to my home and garden channel. First of all, disclaimer, these are not from my garden. These were actually from Callaway Gardens, which is located in central Georgia. And we were visiting there. This was late February. As you can see, they're in full bloom and how gorgeous they are. But yes, guys, you can get daffodils in your own space, maybe not on this scale, not this level, but certainly these wonders can actually just lift your spirit in the winter. So let's take a look at daffodils. They belong to the family Narcissus, and as you can see, they are flowers that produce nice yellow colors. Some of them are pale yellow, some may be a darker yellow, some may even have a little bit of orange in them. And there are actually 25 different species with 13,000 hybrids, guys. Yes, you heard me right. 13,000 hybrids. So there's so many different types that are out there, one to suit everyone. You can see right here that there's some little small, little petite ones. They're so cute. And you can see how they measure up to the light yellow ones and the darker, larger yellow ones, which are the ones that I have in my garden. And I think those little ones are so cute. Now let's take a look at reason number one. The first one is that they are the first flowers to bloom, usually late winter. And of course, it varies by type. Some of them bloom a little earlier, like these darker yellow ones in my garden. They bloom a little bit earlier. And then, as the season progresses, then we have the lighter colored ones. Reason number two is that they are low maintenance plants. And just about anyone can have daffodils in their garden. They pretty much are almost like a set it and forget it plant. The main exception to that would be if you are in a tropical climate. If you're in a tropical area, then they will not make it there because you will get them to grow, but you're only going to get leaves because they need that cold stratification in order for them to produce the hormones that's going to give you blooms at the right time. And in this previous video that I did, which I'm going to link in my playlist, it's going to go over 7 reasons why your daffodils might not be blooming. And you can check that out when you get a chance at the end of this video. This is a beautiful yellow one that I have here in my garden. You can see how they're coming together right there. So basically, you just get your bulbs and you plant them in the fall season. And as you can see, the price really isn't bad. When you buy them in bulk, this is $28.94 and you get 50 bulbs in there. So that's basically $2 per bulb for something that's going to last for a long time. That's a great idea. And I did this previous video, which I'll also link in the playlist where you can go ahead and check to see exactly how to plant them in the fall. And of course, once they're planted and, the season is coming along in the early winter, they'll start sticking their little heads out like you're seeing right here. And again, there really isn't too much to do for them if they're out in the open garden space. Then whenever you get, like winter rains, or maybe you might get snow melts, that's enough for them. If they're in maybe on a patio that's not out in the rain, you can maybe water them just maybe like twice for the month, just so they don't dry out completely. And that is sufficient for them. Of course, make sure the water runs at the bottom of your container so that way they don't get root rot. And then once that has been done and the time comes, you see them start to come up and then the flowers open and they just beautify your space. And they really do lift your mood in the winter because it can be so drab. Sometimes everything looks gray and just cold. And they just add that pop. Now, guys, if you did not get to plant them in the fall, you certainly have the option to go to your garden center in the spring and you will see some that they have prepared for you already. And they come in different sizes. It's best to get them when they look like this right here and the flowers are not come up yet or they haven't come up. So you can give them, maybe a few weeks or days and then they'll come up and you get those lovely blooms. And just plant them as they are so they have that little cluster. Number 3 is that they are beautiful. And I'm sure I don't need to say anything further about them. Aren't they absolutely gorgeous, guys? I just love how they look. And just look at them nodding in the breeze right here. And the good thing about them too is that they pair very well with other bulbs. So the purple ones right there, those are some hyacinths, and you have some pink tulips to the other end. And again, they bloom at different times. So like the later blooming ones, they'll be available when these other bulbs come up. So it's a perfect combination. You can see how the colors match. This was actually when we have visited the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, maybe about 2 years ago or so, and they were just so gorgeous. Moving on to number 4. And number 4 is that they multiply. And so as the years go by, you're going to see that you have more and more of them thickening up and just looking really good. And you can feed them like when you're planting them initially, maybe like with some, bone meal or different types of, organic material to nourish them. But for the most part, they honestly don't need anything. Sometimes you can give them a little bit of, top dressing, just to give them a little boost. But most of what they need comes from the leaves. The leaves, they photosynthesize, they produce the food, and they just multiply over time. And it's just a wonderful feature about this plant. Moving on to number 5, which is that they are good repeaters. So they multiply, yes, and they keep coming back year after year. And the reason why I mention this is because there are other bulb types, such as these beautiful tulips that I have at my mailbox. I have them there. But what happens is the first year, they're spectacular. Second year, a little bit less. And by years 3 and 4, you may not get any blooms at all. But the daffodils, on the other hand, the more that time goes, is the better they become. You're seeing more, flowers on each particular bulb that is generated from, and they just thicken up and they look really, really good. And just look at these right here, guys. It's just like when you see how they're dancing in the breeze, it is just so beautiful. And I just absolutely love them. And you can let me know if you've ever grown daffodils before in the comments. I'd love to know what your experience is and, how you feel about them, if you love them as much as we do. I think they're so resilient as well. Now, moving on to number 6, and many people don't know this, is that they smell really sweet. Not every single variety does that, but this one that I have here in my garden, this one definitely does. So if you ever get a chance, you can just take a whiff and see if you get that nice color. It just smells like an expensive perfume to me. I just absolutely love it. And, because it has that smell, what happens quite often is that when you have the early pollinators like bees, those are typically the first ones that come out. They will come to it and they'll get, what they need from it, because most other things are not blooming when your daffodils are up, especially the earlier season ones. And these bees that they tend to come out and they start looking around, to find something. And this is the perfect solution for them. Moving on to number 7, which is that you can use them as cut flowers. This is a previous video that I did here. I actually wrote a poem about them, and this video was about that, which will be in the playlist as well too. They're pretty good as cut flowers, but they don't last as long when they are, indoors, like when they're cut like that. But you also have the option to make them last longer in your decor, like for spring. If you're doing like a baby shower, wedding, or whatever you wanted to use that color, you can always get them at the store like this in the soil, and you can put them in larger vases and just make it really nice for this season. It just depends on what you prefer. Moving on to number 8, they are rabbit, squirrel, and deer resistant. And so, some people, they have, animals like these coming in and having them. And that's not an issue with daffodils. Daffodils, they don't like the bulbs at all when you're planting them. Because I've had squirrels come in and they actually dig out my tulip bulbs. And this happened even like I waited for 2 weeks and I thought everything was fine. And then I went in the next day and they were all gone. I just saw little holes in the ground. But they don't like daffodil bulbs, so they'll pretty much leave them alone when they're planted. And even when it has come up, they don't mess with them too much because there is a little bit of irritation in the sap that comes from it. So bear that in mind as well too. Number 9 is that the blooms last long, which is wonderful. So I will see your daffodil blooms in my garden will last like for 2 weeks. Same flower, 2 weeks, and it still looks good. The cold weather comes and it doesn't affect them too much. And they typically will hold off. They get a little more dormant like if it gets really cold. So they kind of stop if they're coming up and then they just flower whenever they're ready. Before we go any further, guys, I just wanted to invite you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, to follow along on my garden tours, tips, and topics. I do my uploads on Thursdays, but I do have a few sprinkled in between sometimes. So be sure to hit the notification bell twice so you'll be notified. Number 10 is that they symbolize friendship and new beginnings. And I think that maybe because they typically come up at the beginning of the year. So you're thinking about, a clean slate, just doing things differently in your life, arranging some, where you're going to go and what you're going to do next. And they come up at that time. So it kind of like, puts you in that whole mindset of a reset in a sense. Now, as far as basically keeping it real, just to say that, for the daffodils, when the flowers fade, you do have to allow the leaves to turn yellow or at least a pale green color so they would have stored enough food before you cut them back. In some cases, you don't even have to cut them back. So if you're concerned that may be a little unsightly for you, you can get summer blooming bulbs. And I talked about this in my previous video, which I'll link at the end for you, like your dahlias or dahlias, as some people call them right here. So when the daffodils have gone down, they are coming up and then they're going to just pull your eye in. So you tend to be looking at those and not the leaves that are there. You can also plant gladiolas, another one here. Again, this is another summer bulb. So they come up and they pull your eye in and up so you're not looking down at them. Some people even, they'll braid the leaves of the daffodils together because I've seen that done to kind of give it it's a cute little appearance. So it's not all, hanging all over the place. So they'll braid them. So that's another option you can do as well. Another one too is that you can actually, you can plant perennials next to them. So the perennials will come up when they're going down and they'll have nice, fluffy leaves. And then the flowers will come out. And before you know it, the daffodils, they've dried off and completely gone. So you don't even have to think about it anymore. Now, in the fall, when you're planting them, a good companion would be pansies, because what happens is when the bulbs are in the ground, the pansies are there making everything beautiful. And then as the weather changes and the season changes, they're going to start coming up, maybe behind them. It might be a good place, like right behind your pansies. And then they'll come up and it will look really good together. So guys, I hope that this helped you a lot. If you have any questions, anything I missed, please put it in the comments below. And of course, also to bear in mind that you may get a volunteer one here or there, because they do grow from seeds, but it does take up to 3 or 4 years to get blooms from seeds. But, when they fade out, we're so thankful to have had them, and we look forward to the next season of our daffodils. So I do want to thank you so much for watching. If you've never gotten any before, I would highly encourage you to think of getting some. You can get the ones that are sprouted already, or wait until the fall to get some bulbs and plant it that way, whichever one works best for you. So thank you so much for watching. Happy gardening, and I do hope to see you in the next video. Take care.